Ethan Carter walked alone across the wide, empty desert of the distant planet Iridia. The sun hung low in the sky, casting long shadows over the endless dunes. The wind blew small grains of sand into his face, but he did not slow his steps. He had come far for one reason: to find what no one else had found in hundreds of years. Legends spoke of a fortress built by an ancient alien race, a fortress so powerful that its doors were said to be impossible to open. Few believed it even existed, and fewer still dared to search for it. Ethan had always been drawn to the unknown. He had traveled to deserts, mountains, and ruined cities across the galaxy, always looking for something hidden, something forgotten. The stories told of a massive fortress, its doors sealed for thousands of years, holding secrets and technology far beyond anything humans had. Some said the aliens who built it had vanished because they had angered forces beyond their understanding. Others said they had destroyed themselves in their pride. Ethan did not care about the stories. He cared about what might lie beyond the doors. The desert was harsh and empty. The sand stretched for miles, a sea of golden waves under the hot sun. Ethan's boots sank slightly with each step. He carried a backpack with water, tools, and a small scanner to detect any hidden structures under the sand. He paused for a moment to check his instruments. The readings were strange. Something large lay buried beneath the dunes ahead. Ethan's heart quickened. This could be it, the fortress. As he moved forward, shapes began to appear through the heat waves. He squinted and saw massive lines rising from the sand. At first he thought it was just a trick of the light. But as he got closer, the shapes became clear. Towers and walls built with a material that gleamed slightly in the sun. It was not like anything humans had ever made. The fortress was enormous. It rose out of the sand like a giant's crown, its doors taller than any building Ethan had seen. He approached the doors slowly. The closer he got, the more he could see the carvings. Strange symbols, geometric patterns, and pictures of beings that looked like nothing on Earth. Ethan studied them closely. He reached out and touched the surface. The doors were cold and smooth under his hand. As soon as he pressed his palm against the symbols, a faint hum filled the air. The vibrations ran through his arm and made his hair stand on end. It was as if the fortress was alive, as if it recognized him. Ethan stepped back, surprised by the reaction. He had expected stone and metal, not something that seemed to respond. He pulled out a small scanner from his pack and waved it over the doors. The device beeped rapidly, reading energy patterns unlike any Ethan had seen before. He realized this was not just a building. It was a machine, a structure designed with intelligence. His mind raced with possibilities. Inside could be knowledge, weapons, technology from a civilization far older than humanity. His pulse quickened with excitement. He circled the fortress, looking for a way to enter. There were no handles, no keyholes, no obvious openings. The doors were one solid piece, perfectly sealed. He noticed that some of the carvings formed patterns, almost like they could be pressed or moved. Ethan knelt and began to trace the shapes with his fingers, trying to understand their function. Hours passed and the sun began to sink lower. The desert grew cooler and shadows stretched long across the dunes. Ethan did not feel tired. He was too focused on the doors, too curious to stop. Suddenly, one of the symbols beneath his fingers glowed faintly. A line of light traveled across the surface of the doors and a low hum grew louder. Ethan stepped back in awe. The doors were reacting to him. He felt a mixture of fear and excitement. He had read about alien technology that could be dangerous, but he had never felt anything like this. The energy was alive, almost aware. It was as if the fortress had been waiting for someone, and now it had found him. Ethan decided to try something risky. He pressed the symbol more firmly. The light spread and the hum became a resonant sound that seemed to vibrate through the sand itself. Small panels on the doors began to shift, moving in patterns he did not understand. The ground beneath his feet shook slightly. Ethan held his breath, unsure if he was about to witness a miracle or trigger a trap. Then slowly the massive doors began to open. The sound was like metal grinding against metal, but it had a deep musical quality. Light spilled out from the dark interior, warm and golden, revealing a glimpse of the halls beyond. Ethan stepped inside carefully. The air was cool and dry, a stark contrast to the burning heat outside. The interior was vast, with ceilings so high he could not see the top. Strange lights moved along the walls, pulsing in rhythm with the hum he had heard outside. The floors were smooth and reflective, and the walls were covered with more symbols and images. Ethan could see depictions of beings moving through space, ships flying between stars and battles that seemed to span entire planets. The artwork was intricate, detailed, and alive with color. He moved further in, his footsteps echoing through the massive halls. Everything was silent except for the low hum, a constant presence that seemed to guide him. Ethan could feel the intelligence of the fortress watching him. It was not threatening, but it was aware. He wondered if the aliens had created this place to protect their secrets from everyone, even themselves. He continued exploring, finding rooms filled with machines he could not begin to understand. Panels with strange controls, devices that floated in midair, and crystals that emitted light without heat. Ethan took careful notes and photos with his equipment, documenting everything he could. In one large chamber, he found what looked like a map of the galaxy, etched into the floor. Small lights indicated planets, stars, and routes through space. Some of the points glowed brightly, others dimmed as if they were no longer active. Ethan knelt to study it. He realized the fortress had been a center of knowledge, a place where the alien civilization had observed the universe, recorded history, and possibly controlled events across star systems. He felt a shiver run down his spine. The responsibility of discovering this place weighed heavily on him. Anything he did here could have consequences far beyond what he could imagine. Hours turned into days. Ethan set up a small camp in a corner of the fortress, eating and sleeping in shifts so he could continue his exploration. Each room brought new wonders. He found chambers filled with devices that emitted sound and light, some of which responded when he moved near them. He found storage rooms with preserved materials, showing the daily lives of the aliens. He realized they were intelligent, thoughtful, and curious, much like humans. This thought comforted him. He felt a strange connection to a species that had been gone for millennia. On the fourth day, he discovered a chamber unlike any other. The walls were lined with panels that seemed to move subtly, as if breathing. In the center was a pedestal with a crystal that pulsed with a soft blue light. Ethan approached carefully. As he got closer, the light from the crystal formed shapes, letters, and images. He could not understand all of it, but it was clear that it was a form of communication. He touched the crystal lightly. Instantly, the symbols rearranged themselves, forming patterns he could comprehend. The crystal was teaching him. It was as if the fortress wanted him to learn, wanted him to understand its secrets. Ethan spent hours in that chamber, learning basic principles of alien technology, reading patterns in the light, and understanding some of the symbols. He realized that this fortress was not only a structure but also a library, a school, and a guardian. It had waited for someone intelligent enough to enter and humble enough to learn. Ethan felt a mix of pride and humility. He was the first human to step inside this place, and he had a chance to unlock knowledge that could change everything humanity knew about the universe. By the time he exited the chamber, the sun was setting outside the fortress, casting long shadows across the desert. Ethan stood at the threshold looking back at the massive doors he had opened. The fortress had accepted him. He did not know what lay ahead, what dangers he might face, or how others might try to claim what he had found. But for the first time in his life, he felt that he was part of something greater than himself. The adventure had only just begun, and the fortress, forgotten by time, had chosen him as its human explorer, its witness, and perhaps its guardian. Ethan Carter woke early in the fortress, the soft light of the alien crystal still glowing faintly in the chamber behind him. The desert outside was calm, with the wind barely moving the sand. He stretched and checked his equipment, making sure everything was in working order. His mind was full of questions. The fortress was more than a building. It was alive with energy and intelligence. Ethan could feel it watching him, guiding him, but in a gentle way. He wanted to explore more, to understand what secrets lay hidden deeper inside. He stepped into a long hallway. The walls glimmered with patterns that seemed to shift as he moved. He remembered the lessons from the crystal chamber, trying to read the symbols as best he could. Some made sense, describing functions and processes he could begin to grasp. Others remained a mystery, strange combinations of lines and shapes that made his head spin. But Ethan was patient. He had always been patient. He knew discovery required time. As he walked, he noticed a soft sound in the distance, like a gentle humming that pulsed through the air. He followed it, feeling it resonate in his chest. The hall opened into a large room, filled with devices floating in midair, glowing with soft colors. Ethan's eyes widened. He had seen alien machines before, but these were alive. They moved as if aware of his presence, aligning themselves to his movements, responding to his steps. Ethan reached out to touch one. It hovered close, then pulled back slightly, almost shy. He smiled. He was beginning to understand that the fortress could interact with him, and it might even trust him. In the center of the room, a platform rose slightly above the floor. On it lay a cube of light, hovering and rotating slowly. Ethan approached cautiously. As he reached out to touch it, the cube split into smaller cubes, spinning around him in a pattern. The hum in the room grew louder. Ethan felt a thrill. The fortress was not only alive, it was teaching him again, testing him with movement and rhythm. He moved his hands to follow the spinning cubes, and to his surprise, the patterns started to align, forming a path leading to another door. The fortress was showing him the way. Ethan followed the path, moving carefully so as not to disturb the floating machines. The door at the end was different from the ones he had seen before. It was smaller, but it pulsed with a bright blue light. Symbols etched into the frame glowed, forming words he could almost understand. He pressed a symbol that looked like a star within a circle. The door slid open silently, revealing another chamber, larger than anything Ethan had imagined. The walls were covered with moving images, showing planets, stars, and ships traveling between them. Ethan felt a rush of excitement. This chamber was a control center, a place where the ancient aliens had watched the universe. He stepped inside and felt the hum of energy growing stronger. Panels on the walls responded to his touch. He pressed a glowing shape and a holographic map of nearby star systems appeared. Ethan's eyes scanned the display. He could see planets with signs of life, planets destroyed, and routes connecting them. He realized this fortress was more than a library or a building. It was a command center, capable of monitoring events across galaxies. His mind raced with possibilities. If humans could learn from this, they could explore and protect worlds in ways never before imagined. While exploring the chamber, Ethan found a section that seemed like a living interface. A voice, soft and musical, echoed through the room. "Welcome, visitor. I am Laura, guardian of this fortress." Ethan froze for a moment. He had expected the fortress to be alive, but a voice was something else entirely. "I am Ethan Carter," he replied, unsure if the AI could understand him. "I seek knowledge and understanding." There was a pause, then Laura spoke again. "Your intent is clear. I will assist if you prove your curiosity and wisdom." Ethan nodded. "I will do my best." Laura guided him through the chamber, showing him panels and machines. She explained in simple terms, translating the alien symbols into concepts Ethan could grasp. He learned how some machines stored energy, how others recorded information, and how certain panels controlled communication between systems. Ethan felt amazed. The aliens had created a fortress that could do almost anything, and Laura had been waiting for someone who could understand it. Days passed as Ethan studied under Laura's guidance. He learned to activate small devices, read alien records, and understand patterns that allowed him to predict the fortress's responses. He felt a growing connection with the AI. Laura was patient, never rushing him, always encouraging him to think and observe. Ethan realized he had never felt this close to an intelligence outside of humanity. It was like discovering a new friend, a teacher, and a guide all in one. One day, while exploring a corridor lined with glowing crystals, Ethan noticed a door slightly ajar. He had not seen it before. Curious, he pushed it open. Inside was a room filled with alien artifacts, tools, clothing, and small objects he could not identify. In the center, a pedestal held a device shaped like a small sphere. Ethan picked it up, feeling its smooth surface and gentle warmth. When he touched it, the sphere projected images of the alien civilization. He saw them working together, building ships, exploring planets, and living their lives. The images showed not only their technology but their culture, their values, and their curiosity about the universe. Ethan felt a deep respect for a species long gone. Laura spoke softly. "These records are memories of a civilization that vanished. They contain lessons, warnings, and wisdom. Treat them carefully." Ethan nodded, feeling the weight of responsibility. This fortress was more than a discovery. It was a legacy. Whatever knowledge he took from here must be used wisely. He spent hours studying the images, learning about alien science, their exploration methods, and their mistakes. He realized that humanity could learn much from them. not only about technology but about how to approach the universe with caution and respect. As Ethan continued to explore, he discovered a chamber filled with defensive devices, walls with energy barriers, turrets, and machines that seemed capable of incredible destruction. Laura explained that these systems had protected the fortress from intruders for centuries. She also warned that activating them without understanding could be dangerous. Ethan studied the controls carefully, noting how each system functioned. He realized that the fortress had been designed to be secure, to keep its knowledge safe from those who might misuse it. Late one evening, while resting in a quiet chamber, Ethan heard a distant sound outside the fortress. It was faint, almost like a whisper, but it carried through the halls. He moved carefully to the nearest window-like opening and looked out. In the desert, he saw faint shapes moving, small against the vast dunes. He could not make out details, but something was approaching. Ethan felt a chill. He had hoped to explore in peace, but it seemed the desert was not as empty as he thought. Laura's voice came softly. "You are not alone. Others may have sensed the fortress. We must prepare, but do not fear. Your understanding and courage will guide us." Ethan nodded, feeling a mixture of anticipation and caution. The adventure was far from over. Over the next few days, Ethan worked with Laura to learn more about the fortress's defensive and observational systems. He mapped out corridors, identified energy sources, and learned to interact with the machine safely. He practiced moving through rooms without triggering alarms and learned to read subtle cues in the fortress's responses. Each day he felt more confident and more connected to this alien place. He understood that he had been chosen not only to discover the fortress, but to protect it. Then one evening, Ethan discovered a hidden chamber behind a wall of glowing symbols. Inside, he found a console with data streams that seemed to reach across the galaxy. Laura explained that this was a communications hub, used to observe events in distant star systems. Ethan marveled at the technology, realizing the potential it held. If humans could use this safely, they could monitor and respond to threats across many worlds. But he also understood the danger. In the wrong hands, this power could destroy civilizations. Ethan felt the weight of his responsibility again. He had discovered something far greater than any treasure. He had discovered knowledge and power that could shape the future. As night fell, Ethan stood in the chamber looking at the glowing symbols and holographic images. He felt a deep sense of wonder and purpose. The fortress had chosen him to learn, to explore, and to protect. He knew that challenges lay ahead, that others might try to claim what he had found. But for now, he was content to study, to understand, and to build a bond with Laura. Together, human and AI, they were beginning to unlock the secrets of a civilization long gone, and the adventure was only beginning. Ethan Carter woke early, the soft hum of the fortress filling the quiet halls. The events of the last few days had left him both excited and thoughtful. He had learned much from Laura, the AI guardian, and had explored chambers that showed the wonders and intelligence of a civilization long gone. Yet he knew that the fortress had secrets he had not yet discovered. Today, he decided, he would venture further into the unknown, beyond the chambers he had explored before. He moved through a corridor lined with glowing panels. The light shifted slightly as he walked, following him in patterns he could almost understand. Ethan had begun to recognize the subtle signs that indicated pathways and safe passages. He knew some areas might be dangerous, but he trusted his instincts and the guidance of Laura. "Ethan," Laura said softly, her voice echoing in the hall. "Your understanding has grown. You are ready to explore the archives and the inner chambers. They hold knowledge that must be approached with care." Ethan nodded, feeling a mixture of excitement and caution. The corridor led him to a large hall filled with floating platforms, each covered with symbols that glowed faintly in different colors. He stepped onto one and it moved smoothly across the room. Ethan realized that the platforms formed a kind of puzzle. Each one needed to be activated in the right order to reach the other side. He studied the symbols carefully, remembering what Laura had taught him. He stepped from platform to platform, adjusting his steps according to the patterns. The platforms responded to his touch, moving with precision. When he reached the other side, he felt a sense of accomplishment. The fortress was testing him, challenging his mind and his patience. Beyond the platforms lay a massive chamber. Its walls were covered with screens and panels showing events from across the galaxy. Some images were ancient, showing stars and planets that had long since changed. Others were more recent, showing distant civilizations and strange phenomena. Ethan felt a sense of awe. This chamber was a record of the universe, a window into both the past and the present. He walked carefully, studying the panels and trying to understand what he saw. Laura's voice guided him, explaining the meanings of symbols and lights. "These records," she said, "hold the history of many civilizations, including those that have disappeared. They are a testament to the knowledge of the ones who built this fortress." Ethan paused at a panel that displayed images of alien ships traveling between worlds. He could see the designs of the ships, their engines glowing as they moved through space. Some ships appeared to be for exploration, others for defense. He realized that the aliens had traveled far and wide, studying the galaxy in ways humans had only dreamed of. Ethan felt a mix of excitement and responsibility. If humans could learn from these records, they could advance in ways previously impossible. But he also understood the risks. The knowledge contained here could be dangerous if misused. As he continued exploring, Ethan discovered a hidden chamber behind a sliding wall. Inside, he found a room filled with devices that seemed to control the fortress itself. Levers, buttons, and glowing crystals covered the walls. Laura explained that this was the central control hub, the heart of the fortress. "These systems," she said, "allow control over defenses, observation, and energy distribution. Use them wisely." Ethan studied the controls carefully. He realized that even a small mistake could trigger alarms or activate defense systems. He moved slowly, taking notes and learning the functions of each device. Hours passed as Ethan explored the control hub. He discovered panels that monitored the environment of the desert outside, energy fields that could extend for miles, and communication systems that could reach across the galaxy. Each discovery filled him with awe. The fortress was not only a library or a record of history, it was a powerful structure capable of immense influence. Ethan felt the weight of responsibility pressing on him. He was the first human to access this knowledge, and it was his duty to protect it. In the deepest part of the control hub, Ethan found a console with a glowing map of distant star systems. Some stars had blinking lights indicating activity, while others were dark and silent. Ethan moved his hands over the map and images of planets and fleets appeared. Laura guided him through the displays, explaining the purpose of each system. Ethan felt a thrill. He was learning about navigation, communication, and strategy used by a civilization far older than humanity. He realized that this knowledge could help humans explore, defend, and understand the galaxy in ways they never had before. While studying the map, Ethan noticed a pattern he had not seen before. Several points on the map seemed connected by faint lines, forming a network of some kind. Laura explained that this was an ancient transportation system, allowing ships to travel quickly between distant locations. Ethan's mind raced. If humans could understand and use this network, it could change the course of space travel forever. But he also knew it would require caution and wisdom. Misuse could lead to disaster. As Ethan explored further, he came across a series of chambers filled with holographic records of the alien civilization. These records were more detailed than anything he had seen before, showing daily life, scientific experiments, and cultural practices. Ethan was fascinated. He could see how the aliens had worked together, shared knowledge, and pursued exploration. There were also records of their mistakes, conflicts, and disasters. Ethan studied them carefully, learning lessons that were as important as the technology itself. The fortress was teaching him not only about machines and energy, but about life, responsibility, and understanding. One evening, while resting in a quiet chamber, Ethan heard a faint vibration through the floor. He paused, listening carefully. Laura's voice echoed softly, "You are sensing another presence. Be cautious, but do not fear. The fortress has protected itself for centuries." Ethan's heart quickened. He had hoped to explore alone, but it seemed the desert was not empty. He moved quietly through the halls, checking the perimeters and watching for signs of intrusion. The fortress hummed around him, its energy resonating with his movements. Over the next few days, Ethan prepared for the possibility of intruders. He studied the fortress's defensive systems, learning to activate shields, energy barriers, and surveillance devices. He practiced moving through the halls silently and efficiently. Laura guided him, offering advice and strategies. Ethan felt a growing confidence. He knew that the fortress could defend itself. But he also understood that his knowledge and quick thinking would be essential if anyone tried to claim it. During his preparations, Ethan discovered a hidden chamber filled with ancient alien weapons. Laura explained that these devices had been deactivated for safety, but they could be used if necessary. Ethan studied the weapons carefully, learning how they functioned and how to control them. He realized that even though the technology was advanced, it required careful handling. One wrong move could be disastrous. Ethan felt a deep respect for the aliens who had built these machines, and for the responsibility now resting on his shoulders. As he continued his exploration, Ethan came across a room filled with alien vehicles. Some looked like ships designed for space travel, while others appeared to be land-based. Laura guided him through the systems, showing how energy flowed, how navigation worked, and how propulsion was controlled. Ethan felt a sense of excitement. If humans could learn to operate these vehicles, they could travel farther and faster than ever before. But again, he understood the risks. The knowledge was powerful, and he would need time and careful study to use it wisely. One day, Ethan found a chamber with a large, circular device at its center. The device pulsed with energy, and lines of light extended across the floor, connecting to other systems in the fortress. Laura explained that this was the energy core, the heart of the fortress's power. Ethan approached carefully, studying the controls and the flow of energy. He realized that this core could power entire sections of the fortress, provide energy for defense systems, and even influence nearby areas of the desert. The possibilities were incredible, but the responsibility weighed heavily on him. Ethan spent hours learning the energy core, understanding its functions and limitations. He worked with Laura to test small outputs, observing how the fortress responded. He felt a growing sense of mastery, a connection with the alien technology that was both thrilling and humbling. The fortress was no longer just a building, it was a living entity, and he was learning to communicate with it, to understand its needs and capabilities. As the days passed, Ethan felt a deep bond with the fortress and with Laura. He knew that he had been chosen to explore, to learn and to protect this ancient place. He also knew that challenges would come, that others might try to claim the knowledge and power he had discovered. But for now, he focused on understanding, preparing, and building his skills. The fortress had opened its doors to him, and he was determined to honor that trust, to become a guardian and a student of a civilization long forgotten by time. Ethan Carter moved quietly through the vast halls of the fortress, the hum of energy surrounding him. The desert outside was calm, but his instincts told him that something was approaching. Laura's voice echoed softly. "You are aware of others nearby. We must be ready." Ethan nodded. He had prepared, but he knew that facing intruders would test everything he had learned in the fortress. He reached the control hub and checked the systems again. Energy shields, defensive turrets, and observation panels were all active. Ethan felt a thrill of confidence. The fortress was powerful, but it needed his guidance. He moved through the halls, reviewing the chambers and ensuring that all systems were ready. He had learned to anticipate the fortress's responses, understanding its energy flows and defenses. He felt a bond with it, a silent communication that guided his decisions. Outside, in the desert, shadows moved across the sand. Ethan observed them through the fortress's advanced observation panels. A group of alien mercenaries, armed and aggressive, was approaching. Their ships were small but fast, and their intent was clear. They had come to take the fortress for themselves. Ethan's heart beat faster, but he remained calm. He had trained for this, studied the fortress's systems, and prepared for defense. He activated the first line of defense. Energy barriers rose from the walls, forming invisible walls around key sections of the fortress. The mercenaries' scanners hit the shields, and they slowed their approach, surprised by the sudden resistance. Ethan smiled. He had anticipated this. He moved to activate surveillance systems, tracking each mercenary as they tried to find a way in. Laura guided him, her voice calm and precise. "Monitor their movements and prepare countermeasures. They are intelligent, but they underestimate your resourcefulness." Ethan observed the alien commander, a tall figure with dark armor, coordinating his team. They were aggressive but cautious, aware that the fortress might have defenses. Ethan realized he needed to act quickly and strategically. He began to manipulate the fortress's energy systems, redirecting power to certain corridors to create traps and controlled obstacles. Lights flickered along the floors, creating illusions that confused the intruders. The fortress responded to his commands, its machines moving in harmony with his plans. As the mercenaries advanced, Ethan triggered a series of defensive turrets. They moved silently, focusing on paths the intruders were likely to take. The weapons emitted energy pulses that blocked progress without harming the desert environment. Ethan watched the holographic displays, guiding the fortress to anticipate each movement. The mercenaries were clever, but they were unprepared for the intelligence and adaptability of a human working with the fortress. One of the intruders tried to hack a control panel at the outer gates. Ethan focused on that area, activating security protocols. The panel emitted a strong pulse that temporarily disabled the intruder's devices. Ethan smiled, recognizing the importance of timing and observation. Laura guided him further, suggesting ways to use the fortress's energy to create obstacles and redirect the mercenaries without putting himself in danger. The alien commander ordered a direct assault, attempting to breach the main doors. Ethan activated the door's defensive mechanisms. Panels shifted, forming barriers and channels that slowed their advance. Energy pulses created illusions, making corridors appear longer or blocked. The mercenaries hesitated, unsure of the fortress's capabilities. Ethan observed carefully, learning from their tactics and adapting in real time. The battle was not just strength, it was intelligence, strategy, and patience. Ethan then moved to the defensive core, a central chamber that controlled most of the fortress's systems. He adjusted energy flows, powering up certain sectors while conserving energy in others. Laura guided him, analyzing the intruder's movements and suggesting responses. Together, they formed a strategy that combined human ingenuity and alien technology. Ethan felt a thrill. This was a challenge unlike any he had faced before, and he was rising to meet it. The mercenaries began to split into smaller groups, attempting to find weak points. Ethan anticipated this and adjusted defenses accordingly. Energy barriers formed temporary corridors, trapping some and redirecting others. Turrets moved quickly, focusing on predicted paths. The mercenaries grew frustrated, realizing that the fortress was not just a building but an intelligent opponent. Ethan observed their hesitation, using it to strengthen his strategy. He felt a growing sense of connection with the fortress, understanding how its systems responded to his intentions. One intruder managed to reach a secondary control panel. Ethan quickly activated a countermeasure, creating a localized energy field that trapped the intruder temporarily. He used the fortress's movement sensors to monitor the rest of the group, anticipating their next moves. Laura provided insights, suggesting adjustments to energy flows and defensive positioning. Together, they created a network of defenses that seemed to anticipate the intruder's thoughts. The alien commander realized that brute force was failing. He ordered a retreat and regrouped with his team at the edge of the desert. Ethan monitored their movements, knowing they would likely try another approach. He reinforced the outer defenses, activated observation drones, and prepared for the next wave. Laura's voice was calm but encouraging. "You have done well, Ethan. They will return, but you are ready." Ethan took a moment to rest, reflecting on the battle. He realized that his success was not only due to the fortress's power, but also to his ability to understand and work with it. He had combined human intuition, patience, and strategy with the alien technology. The fortress had become more than a building. It was a partner, a guide, and a protector. He felt a deep respect for both the AI and the alien civilization that had built this place. Over the next few days, Ethan strengthened defenses, explored hidden corridors, and studied the fortress's systems further. He learned how to manipulate energy flows, control observation and communication systems, and use the environment to his advantage. Laura taught him advanced strategies, combining his understanding with the fortress's capabilities. Ethan felt a growing sense of mastery. He was becoming a true guardian, prepared to defend the knowledge and technology of a civilization long gone. During his studies, Ethan discovered a hidden chamber filled with storage pods. Each pod contained artifacts, tools, and small devices of alien origin. He carefully examined each item, learning their functions and uses. Laura guided him, explaining the significance of each artifact. Ethan realized that these items were not only tools but also lessons, showing how the aliens had lived, worked, and protected their civilization. He felt a deep respect and a sense of responsibility to preserve and understand these treasures. One evening, Ethan noticed a disturbance outside the fortress. The desert winds shifted, carrying faint sounds of movement. He observed through the panels and saw that the mercenaries were returning, larger in number and more determined. Ethan quickly activated the fortress's defenses, reinforcing barriers, turrets, and observation systems. He felt a mix of anticipation and determination. This time the challenge would be greater, but he was ready. As the mercenaries approached, Ethan moved through the halls, coordinating the fortress's responses. Energy fields shifted, corridors altered, and turrets targeted predicted paths. The intruders tried to adapt, but Ethan was always one step ahead. He used the fortress's power to create illusions, obstacles, and traps, forcing the mercenaries to retreat repeatedly. Laura provided guidance, offering strategies and insights that combined human creativity with alien technology. The battle became a test of intelligence and patience, not just strength. Hours passed as Ethan maintained control, monitoring the desert and adjusting the fortress's responses. The mercenaries grew frustrated, realizing that the fortress was not simply a prize to be taken. Ethan felt a growing confidence. He understood the systems, anticipated the intruders' moves, and guided the fortress with skill. The AI and human partnership proved stronger than he had imagined. The intruders eventually retreated, leaving the desert calm once more. Ethan stood in the control hub, breathing steadily. The fortress hummed softly around him, its energy responding to his presence. Laura spoke. "You have defended the fortress well. You have proven your courage, intelligence, and resourcefulness. This place is safe under your guidance." Ethan felt a deep sense of accomplishment. The challenge had tested him, but he had risen to meet it. He realized that the fortress had not only provided knowledge and technology, but also trust and partnership. As night fell over the desert, Ethan looked out at the stars, reflecting on the battles and discoveries. He knew that more challenges would come, that others might try to claim what he had found. But he also knew that he was no longer alone. The fortress, Laura, and his own understanding had become a team capable of facing whatever lay ahead. He felt a sense of purpose, responsibility, and excitement for the future. Humanity had been given a chance to step into a wider universe, and he would guide it wisely, protecting the knowledge and legacy of a civilization long forgotten by time. Ethan Carter stood at the threshold of the fortress, the desert wind brushing against his face. The events of the past days had left him exhausted but exhilarated. He had explored chambers, learned from Laura, and faced intruders who sought to claim the fortress for themselves. Now the halls were calm, the hum of energy steady and welcoming. Ethan felt a deep sense of accomplishment. He had earned the trust of the fortress, and in return it had taught him, guided him, and protected him. The desert outside was quiet, but Ethan knew that challenges might still come. Laura's voice echoed softly in the halls. "The fortress is secure, Ethan. You have proven yourself as its guardian. However, the universe is vast and knowledge attracts attention. Be prepared for what may come." Ethan nodded, understanding the truth in her words. The fortress was more than a building. It was a beacon of knowledge, and knowledge always drew those who desired power. He began his day by reviewing the fortress systems. Energy flows, observation panels, and defensive mechanisms all hummed in perfect harmony. Ethan moved through the halls, checking devices and making adjustments. He had learned how to balance energy distribution, how to anticipate responses, and how to maintain the fortress's stability. Each step reinforced his confidence and strengthened his bond with Laura. Together they were a team, blending human intuition with alien technology. Ethan decided to explore parts of the fortress he had not yet seen. Long corridors led to chambers filled with alien machines, artifacts, and holographic records. Each room told a story, revealing the lives, struggles, and achievements of a civilization long gone. Ethan moved carefully, studying the displays, taking notes, and learning from each piece of knowledge. He felt a growing respect for the aliens, realizing that they had built a place that could teach, protect, and inspire. In one chamber, Ethan discovered a series of devices that seemed to manipulate energy fields across the fortress. Laura explained their functions, showing how they could control shields, defensive turrets, and communication systems. Ethan practiced using them, understanding the flow of power and how to make adjustments without overloading the systems. He felt a thrill as he realized the fortress could respond instantly to his commands, working with him to maintain security and order. As he moved deeper into the fortress, Ethan found a room that projected a holographic map of distant star systems. Some stars glowed brightly while others dimmed. Laura guided him, explaining the significance of the patterns. Ethan realized that the aliens had monitored the galaxy, tracking events, civilizations, and natural phenomena. He felt a sense of awe and responsibility. This knowledge could help humanity explore, protect, and understand the universe. But it also required wisdom and caution. Misuse could lead to disaster. While studying the map, Ethan noticed a pattern connecting several distant planets. He reached out and holographic lines extended to show routes and energy flows. Laura explained that these were ancient travel and communication networks. Ethan's mind raced. If humans could learn to use these networks, they could move across the galaxy quickly and efficiently. But he understood that he must study carefully before attempting anything. The power of the fortress demanded respect. Ethan then explored chambers filled with alien vehicles and ships. Some were designed for space travel, others for land-based exploration. He examined the controls, engines, and navigation systems, learning their principles and functions. Laura guided him, providing translations and explanations of alien technology. Ethan felt a growing sense of mastery. The fortress was teaching him not only about machines but also about strategy, movement, and adaptability. He realized that humans could use this knowledge to explore, defend, and learn from the universe safely. Days passed as Ethan continued to study, explore, and practice. He discovered hidden chambers filled with artifacts and small devices. Laura explained their uses and importance. Ethan handled each item carefully, understanding its function and significance. He realized that these artifacts were lessons, showing how the aliens had lived, built, and protected their civilization. Ethan felt a deep sense of responsibility. He was the first human to have access to this knowledge, and he would honor the trust placed in him by the fortress and by the long-gone civilization. One evening, as the desert sky turned to night, Ethan noticed faint movements on the horizon. Laura's voice guided him. "You sense others. Remain calm and prepare, but do not fear. The fortress and your understanding of it are strong." Ethan observed carefully. Using the fortress's sensors to monitor the desert, shadows moved across the dunes, approaching cautiously. He realized that news of the fortress might have reached others. Intruders could return, drawn by the promise of knowledge and power. Ethan activated the fortress defenses, preparing energy barriers, turrets, and observation systems. He moved through the halls, coordinating responses and adjusting systems. The intruders approached, but Ethan remained calm. He had learned from previous encounters, understood the fortress's capabilities, and anticipated their tactics. When the first wave of intruders reached the outer perimeter, they were met with precise defenses, illusions, and obstacles. The fortress responded seamlessly to Ethan's commands, protecting its knowledge without unnecessary destruction. The intruders tried to regroup and find weaknesses, but Ethan anticipated their moves. He adjusted corridors, redirected energy flows, and used the fortress's observation systems to monitor every step. Laura guided him, providing insights and suggestions. Ethan felt a deep sense of partnership and trust. The fortress was not just a structure. It was a living entity that worked with him, responding to his intentions and supporting his decisions. Hours passed as Ethan maintained control, monitoring the intruders and the fortress systems. The intruders became frustrated, realizing that brute force and clever tactics were ineffective against the combined intelligence of a human and an ancient fortress. Ethan's confidence grew. He understood the power of strategy, observation, and patience. The fortress, with Laura as guide, allowed him to think creatively and respond effectively. By nightfall, the intruders had retreated, leaving the desert calm and empty once more. Ethan took a moment to rest, reflecting on the battles, discoveries, and lessons. He felt a deep sense of accomplishment. He had defended the fortress, learned from its systems, and formed a bond with Laura. He understood that his role was not just to explore, but to protect, to preserve knowledge, and to use it wisely. The fortress had become a partner, teacher, and guardian. Over the next days, Ethan continued to explore and strengthen the fortress. He discovered new chambers, ancient archives, and advanced systems. Laura guided him, translating alien symbols and explaining complex concepts in simple terms. Ethan practiced using the energy systems, defensive mechanisms, and observation tools. He felt a growing mastery, confidence, and connection to the fortress. The partnership between human and AI was stronger than ever, and Ethan realized that he was now part of a legacy that spanned centuries. Ethan also began to document his discoveries, creating notes, drawings, and data records. He knew that this knowledge could benefit humanity, but only if used responsibly. Laura assisted helping him organize and interpret the information. Together, they created a record of the fortress, its systems, and the lessons of the alien civilization. Ethan felt proud. He was not just a visitor. He was a student, guardian, and bridge between two worlds. As weeks passed, Ethan explored the farthest reaches of the fortress. He discovered chambers filled with energy devices, communication arrays, and holographic records of the universe. He practiced using the systems, learning how to control power flows, navigate star maps, and understand the fortress's subtle responses. Each discovery deepened his understanding and strengthened his bond with Laura. He realized that humanity had been given an opportunity to learn, explore, and grow in ways previously unimaginable. One evening, Ethan stood at the main doors looking out over the desert. The stars sparkled above, distant and mysterious. He reflected on his journey, the discovery of the fortress, the learning, the challenges, and the defense against intruders. He felt a deep sense of purpose and responsibility. The fortress had chosen him, trusted him, and guided him. He knew that he had a duty to protect this legacy and use it wisely. Laura's voice echoed softly. "Ethan, you have proven yourself worthy. You are the guardian of this fortress, the student of its knowledge and the protector of its legacy. The future is in your hands." Ethan nodded, feeling the weight and honor of the responsibility. He knew that challenges would come, that others might seek the fortress, but he was ready. He had learned, adapted, and grown. Humanity had found a new place in the galaxy, not through conquest but through courage, curiosity, and understanding. As the night deepened, Ethan walked through the halls observing the glow of the energy fields, the floating machines, and the holographic displays. He felt a sense of peace and accomplishment. The fortress was alive, intelligent, and wise. It had accepted him, taught him, and trusted him. Ethan realized that this was only the beginning. The universe was vast, full of mysteries and challenges, but with knowledge, courage, and partnership, humanity could face whatever lay ahead. Ethan finally rested in a quiet chamber, the hum of the fortress soothing and constant.
Hido,